melting. I don't care.
It's melty.
That's
Was that wrong?
That's the we're live sound.
Oh,
okay.
Well, that's what that is.
So we're live.
Care.
Oh wait, I'm not supposed to be here. That's right. I'm not on the show anymore.
Backing up a bag.
Oh. Surge of
Yeah.
self-pity.
That's
This
true.
is
We were
official.
trying
This
to
is my
replace you.
last show.
Thank God that took long enough.
Holy, dragged on so long.
It's been just that uncomfortable awkwardness for so
The last
long, and
couple of
Adam's
shows
like, "Hey
were
guys."
Just auditions, really.
I can only imagine the pillow talk when I'm not around. What you guys are like, God damn, Chris, man, never
Yeah,
pulls his
imagine.
weight.
We save all that stuff for the show.
True. That's a good thing I don't watch the show when I'm not on. So
Oh
we
my
We
God.
auditioned Bergman. We auditioned Brett Weitzel.
Yep.
We're auditioning John and Clive tonight.
yeah,
So
I see how this is going.
we'll
I
have
see
to
where this
see.
is going. Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's either you get a ship up or you ship out, Chris. That's the rules. It's the name of the game,
Don't threaten me with a good time.
homie.
Stir up.
Save
Stir
it for the show.
Save it for the show. Aren't we on the show right now, Bill?
I don't know.
Yeah, we're on the show.
Background. I have no idea.
Yeah,
what's
we're
going
on the show right now, dude.
We
Turn
live
your
right now?
stupid music off and talk about the show.
Cradle to the Grave, 5-Finger Death Punch.
Yeah.
Go watch it.
Go watch
Anyway,
it. Now.
So what's up, guys? What's up, everybody out there in YouTube world? So we are here again live, your favorite HVAC Overtime show, your favorite HVAC show of all time, out of all of them that are on.
Second favorite because they like mine better, right?
No, definitely not.
No.
Damn.
Oh, to be fair, Chris does have more subscribers.
Yeah, that's true. And most
Yeah,
of those
but
are
I only
like,
got the subscribers after like Clive promoted me, and then I got like 50,000
Well,
subscribers.
Clive got huge because of us. He came on our show and he got huge.
Oh,
Yeah,
so he just
overtime.
returned
was.
his favor.
See, on Fridays, we're the best. Clive, on Saturday, you're the best. And on Monday, Chris, you're the best. There you go. That's the Canada peacemaker for you.
I think I'm gonna start streaming on Fridays too.
might as well.
It's just gonna be dead air. Dead
That's
air
just
on my
real.
channel while I'm on yours. We'll just do dead air, and then we'll see who gets more views.
You're such a cat.
What a,
Let's do it.
All
Go for it,
right.
Bill.
So,
So-
we're gonna say hi to our little buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't forget. We can't forget Mr. Randy and his little buddy Luke.
Always.
Always.
Always. So, what do we got going on today, guys?
Well, first off, let's put a couple things. Mr. Clive down there at the bottom or the top, I don't know where he is in the screen orientation. He was just on a podcast with Bill Spone.
The Bill Spone.
well, he's not on
The-
yet. They didn't release it yet.
Bill Spone.
You
The
just
Bill
built it.
Spone.
So should I not tease it then?
No, tease
It has just been recorded. But ironically, it's some of the same stuff we're talking about tonight.
Cool.
Oh, so yeah, don't even bother going to watch it.
Oh my God.
Don't even
I'm gonna
bother
be-
listening to it then.
And that's the Building HVAC Science
Yeah.
podcast.
If
Yes.
you do decide not to listen to my advice, it is the Building HVAC podcast with Bill Spone and super special guest Clive. But since, just like Clive said, it's not worth watching or listening to. So, you know.
There
Sorry,
will
Bill.
be unique
I know Bill's
content.
watching.
That's all right. So
No,
I'm going
I'm
to be the
sure
cyber.
I'm
I'm
sure
going to be
it's
the
good quality
cyberpunk tonight
content.
here.
I told you this is all this tonight is just gonna be people talking over
Yeah.
each other.
So tonight I'm going to be the cyberpunk who's like pushing for electronic modification of the air in your homes
Ooh,
and championing it.
okay.
But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. it's gonna be wild.
John is probably going to be championing natural air. I'm guessing here.
Well,
Actually,
we'll see which direction it goes. I got a couple ideas.
Oh, okay.
We'll
okay,
see.
so I'm gonna get this out there right now. I'm gonna show my ignorance because I am not the smartest person in the room. But I think it's because,
You're the only person in that room.
That's
or
usually
so you think.
Mm.
I have a producer sitting on the other side right here.
Are you sure
just
it's
don't know it.
probably your barber?
We'll talk about that experience after.
Yeah,
That
Yeah.
didn't take long.
That's a whole nother conversation.
that's a whole nother story.
Side note, we'll talk about it later. But I went to the barber and got a shave and a haircut, and
a happy
it
ending.
was
The part that he's leaving out is at the barber. at one point in time sat on his lap cowgirl style to get a better cut.
In chaps.
In shops.
Yeah, he's leaving that part out, just so everybody knows.
No,
Anyway, hey, before we forget too, it's Mother's Day this weekend.
it is.
So
Yay.
shout out to all the moms out there watching.
And
if anybody
all the dads like me
who
need
have
reminders.
forgotten,
So send me emails to remind me that it's Mother's Day.
Right.
you better hope you get like a service call or something and hit up a gas station on your way home and get some, get her some stuff off the roller grill or whatever. Pick her some candies up or something.
Yeah.
Gas station sushi.
Yeah.
Ooh, gas station sushi. That sounds safe. That sounds healthy.
You
Bologna
can't go wrong with
sandwich.
it. Air
Yeah.
fresheners, man. You can't go wrong with that.
Nope.
So what?
Lotto ticket.
But what I was starting to talk about, I am an advocate for bringing fresh air into the building. That's what I've always preached, and I've had
Wait,
and
hold
I'm
on.
sure
Wait
you
a
guys-
second. Hold on. How many iWaves have you installed in the last 6 months?
a ridiculous amount. A ridiculous amount. But I to be fair, I completely laid it out there. My customer came to me. They said they wanted UV lights. At the time, you couldn't even get UV lights, but I'm not a fan of those just because I don't understand them. And I kind of talked to Clive about this a little bit, and then the only thing we could get our hands on at the time was the new Calgon iWaves made by GPS Global Plasma Solutions, and I just didn't understand them. They seemed like voodoo magic to me. But yeah, I probably installed 30 of them between all their restaurants, and I just don't understand them. And so maybe it's because I'm ignorant that I tried to convince them to let me fix all their economizers and just bring in fresh air and let's filter it, let's clean the coils, and let's do it that way. But the customer demanded, indoor air quality products, and so I gave what they wanted.
I think that might be partly political, just to show that they're actually making a stance for this COVID pandemic, by putting these in, because they do have genuine antiviral activity because of the ozone they produce. Not that they produce ozone, of course, apparently, but that might be just a box ticking exercise. So I take their money, put the units in. Have the staff in the restaurant said anything? Have they mentioned any improvement in the air?
Not anything that I could say. And I, again, not the smartest person, but I read a bunch of reviews about the iWaves because they're bipolar ionizers, and the reviews that I read said that you're going to get more stuff in your filters. They're going to plug up the filters more. If you put them in the home, you're going to see dirt, fall to the floor or whatever. I don't see any of that. I don't notice a single change in the restaurants. Now, granted, these are big restaurants, and there's not a lot of communication and stuff. So I don't know.
Let's not get too deep on the iWave yet. We haven't even started this.
I was going to say, some people go.
I love the restaurants that put the sticker on the window when you walk in. This place is protected by iWave technology. It's like, ooh, I feel better already. Let me take that mask off.
They did that, and Clive is right.
I know
too,
they
that it
did.
was slightly political because they were like, "Give me documentation, give me all this stuff." And after I installed them, then they emailed me back and they were like, "Hey, do you have any documentation proving what these do?" And I go, no, I told you I have some literature from the manufacturer. That's it. Here, I'll forward you that. And yeah, that's plastered on every one of the restaurant doors. And it's like, what? All right.
I have to say the
When
marketing.
we get to that, go ahead, Clive.
I'll let you say what you want first.
Can I talk to you?
I was going to say, when we get to that section, we're going to get a little deeper, and maybe we can shed some light on. I like to take the technology, take the science behind the technology, and lay it out, and then you can make a decision whether you think that's the best option for your client or not, based on the science behind the technologies. And it's all there, so we'll get a little deeper into that. I think it'll be good.
While we're on it, why don't you introduce yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone knows Clive. He's like the master guru of electronics and of all things cool.
Yeah, John, who let you in here?
There was a link on the bathroom wall, and I'm like, I'm going to go follow this.
Damn it, Joe.
A good time. Follow this link.
At the barbershop, yes.
It was at the barbershop bathroom, exactly.
And it's funny. That's why I first got
name's John
introduced to
Ellis.
Chris's channel.
Exactly. Exactly. My name's John Ellis. Thank you for having me, guys. It's really a pleasure to be here. I've been in the HVAC industry for about 40 years now. I'm a recovering contractor. I used to have a contracting business in Southern California. I needed 14 steps to get over that because 12 just wasn't enough, and I'm doing really good. But anyway, moving forward, I teach indoor air quality for Daikin Amana Goodman. I teach field coaching and business coaching for the new flat rate, and I have a consulting business. And what I did in my contracting business and in my consulting is help clients create clean, healthy indoor environments that are severely compromised, respiratory compromised. So my clients came to me with cystic fibrosis, oncology, lung transplants, immune deficiencies, debilitating asthmas, COPD, and your garden variety allergies. Those were my clients that came to me. I've traveled all over the United States working with families, especially when children are involved, in helping them create these healthy indoor environments. And so I've got just a ton of training behind me, a HERS rating, building science, thermography, system performance, just a lot of training. And I've been able to put that to work. And some exciting news with the new flat rate. It's a menu pricing system. It's fully scripted from the time the CSR answers the phone to the time you close out the call for both demand service and maintenance and equipment sales. We just put together a building science indoor air quality module that is fantastic. We locked ourselves in a room for 40 hours and just hammered this thing out. And what's unique about it is it's actually able to show options to a client, get them involved to get you paid for the discovery phase. Because without we have this
no, go ahead.
so
I
we
was
have
going to
this
ask you,
philosophy. So investigate, analyze, quote. You have to do all three. You can't do them out of order. So you have to investigate. The investigation is the discovery. Once you have discovery and you gather data, you analyze the data and you compare that to with what the client's issues are. And then and only then you quote. And so our system walks you through every step and gets you paid. And the good thing is the client will be happy to pay you. And it's based on a philosophy. Most systems out there are sell, sell, sell. Well, we spend a lot of time and money studying people's buying habits. And so we are actually preparing the client to buy with no hard sales. You put a menu in front of them and say, what should we do? And you be quiet. And so that's the philosophy behind what we do. And so that's the elevator version. So I'm just happy to be here and thank you guys. And I think it's going to be a good night.
Now, I took from the beginning of your intro that you're a recovering contractor from Southern California. Can I ask you, are you still in Southern California?
Oh, no, that's a great question. Thank you. No, we sold our business and sold our house. I wanted out of California for, oh my goodness, several reasons. One, every time you turn around, it's on fire, for crying out loud.
I'm still here. I'm still stuck here, still running a business. So I'm an addict.
Hey, John, so does that mean you have attended any pineapple parties in your day then?
Good question.
Your mouth. He doesn't even know what you're talking about. That's an inside joke.
Not to my knowledge.
I'm still in Southern California. I'm actually in the Inland Empire. So
what is this device?
The 909, right?
The 909. Well, it's not the 909 anymore because it's actually the 951 is the new thing. So 909 got too big.
Hold on with your post office talk. Your post office babble.
That's a phone babble, dummy.
But I actually retired and moved to the mountains of northern New Mexico. I got a cabin. That's where I'm at now, nestled in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. I'm about 2 hours from Colorado.
Awesome.
And then some opportunities came up and I came out of retirement and here I am working all over the United States and Canada.
Right on. Well, thanks for coming on. So
yeah, it's awesome.
So what's that device you have there, Clive?
I've got an experiment here that I'm just about to start. So what I've got here is a Sharp plasma cluster module, which I've removed from a Sharp plasma cluster unit. And I've basically hotwired it with a 12-volt supply, right? So this is to prove that they actually produce significant quantities of ozone. So I've got a little ozone meter here. This is something they don't talk about in their marketing, but they just selectively, shall we say, describe what they do.
Right.
So I'm just going to enable this. I'm just going to go back into that menu. I'm going to place this in the matching view, let it stabilize. I'm going to plug this in.
Dave Ward says it. What be that witchery, Clive?
Who is
So
Dave?
I'm going to let
That's a good question.
I'm making a mess here. It's all slidey plastic. I'm trying to fit it all in.
Slidey. That's some technical terms right there. Slidey
Yeah.
plastic.
So what's going to happen here is I'm going to power this up, and after a while, I'll show you the 0 reading for a start in the Ozone, because it's not powered yet. So if I tilt this up, can you see the display at all?
Yes.
You'll see the digits. It's actually got the.
Okay,
I think it says 16 degrees Celsius. Is that what I see?
Yeah, I see at the top it says 6 or 5 or something.
And it says 0 for the Ozone. Right, tell you what, I'm going to plug it in now, but then we can continue talking because it takes a wee while. It is now producing hydroxyl radicals, and we'll see what happens to the ozone meter. You may hear the alarm go off shortly, but we'll continue talking. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
All right, so I think what we're going to do to start off is we're just going to go through different IAQ products. We're going to give each one of you guys 4 minutes or less, whatever you want to take. We don't want to spend too much time per person, and then we're going to move on to the other one. And then afterwards, maybe we'll talk back and forth, all of us together for a few minutes, right?
Can I ask a question? Screw you. I'm going to ask a question. When do I get to talk? Come on, bud. No, I'm just messing with you. Go ahead. Do your thing, moderator.
All right, well, let's start off easy. Let's talk about like the electrostatic air filter device, air cleaner, like the Honeywell, what is it, F300, I believe the model number is. John, do you want to go first?
Oh,
Uh-oh.
Describe the products, though. I need to know what these are. Is that the electric air filter thing?
Electronic air cleaner. Like with the...
The alarm's just gone off.
Electronic air cleaning. The alarm went off.
He's getting
I hope your containment holds up.
Yeah.
It's going off to say that there's too much ozone and it's deadly, or what?
It's hazardous levels of ozone, but only contained in this small box.
Got it. All right. So what?
Electronic air cleaning technology has been around for a long time. It's nothing new. And basically it charges a field, and then the particles stick to an element. There's a pre-filter, and then they stick to that element, and then it's up to you as a contractor or a homeowner to clean that element. Now, anytime you put air across an electronic element, there is a potential for creating ozone. As a matter of fact, you could stand underneath the power lines, and as the air blows across them, and you hear the little buzzing noise, that's actually creating ozone. So not that it's an alarming amount, it just does happen. Now, the wonderful thing about electronic air cleaners is when you turn them off and that field has no charge anymore, and you turn that unit back on, poof, it's self-cleaning. And then you don't have to worry about it, because now all that debris that was stuck in that element is now back in the house to come back around and get stuck on that element again. So it's antiquated technology at best. And you mentioned electrostatic, electronic air cleaner. Those are two separate things. So electrostatic would be a filter medium made out of a synthetic material. Same concept as rubbing a balloon on your arm and having it stick. It makes a charge with the air going through, allowing the particulates to stick to it. So that's electrostatic. And electronic air cleaner, a little bit different technology there.
Okay.
There you have it.
I just learned something. Cool.
Yeah, I tried to tell you guys that earlier, but you weren't listening.
Clive?
Bill, just quiet down up there.
Hold on.
I'll just give you an update on this. Now the display is now gone red while the alarm's going off. It's showing 0.7 parts per million ozone in here from this unit. And I know that if I leave it long enough, it'll go up to 4 parts per million, which is actually to the point that if I crack this open now, I'll just unplug it, in fact. It's just going to beep all the time now. I'm just going to crack this open.
Now that unit, Clive, do they sell in the market for what? Like, do they sell that?
Stinking of ozone. Yes, but there's not a problem with it, because this is designed for fairly large rooms. I'll just show you the display before it goes down. Catch the display before it goes down. The red of the ozone.
2.5.
These units, the sharp plasma cluster this is out of, actually has a really powerful fan. And the only reason it showed that level of ozone in this is because it was a very small area. When it's actually diffused throughout the room with that powerful fan, there is, I can't even detect it. Putting this even at the output of that unit, that the sharp plasma cluster unit, it won't detect any ozone at all because it's below what you'd call ambient levels.
Right. No.
So with the electronic air cleaners, now you kind of explained that when they're plugged in, that they actually do something. But what do you mean, John, when you said that when they turn off, it does everything just fall down, or everything becomes airborne again?
Well, the idea is when it's energized, it's creating a field.
Right.
And so your particles come through, and the older ones used to zap. Right?
Yeah, I remember
it would
that.
zap. Yeah, and it was basically making small particles out of big particles and just breaking them down. But those elements inside of electronic air cleaner will trap those. They get stuck to that element. So what I'm saying is when it's de-energized, there's no more field there. But that it's still coated with particulates. So when that fan initially turns on and power goes to that element, there's a split second where the air is going to blow a lot of that stuff off that element, because there's no power to it's not energized to hold those there. Right. And so that's one of the drawbacks of that type, and just the fact it's just antiquated technology, and I don't see too many of them in the field anymore. And when I do, we make recommendations to do something different.
The old electrostatic precipitators, didn't the power to the plates turn on before the fan to actually create that charge and hold the dust in place?
It depends on whose. So there is a bunch of them out there, and to be honest with you, I don't know the electronics inside them. One would think that would supposed to be happening. A lot of times when our unit kicks on, there's that sudden rush of air, so it'd have to be a pretty strong field to hold that particulate matter there after being de-energized for a certain amount of time.
Well, that kind of makes sense.
Now, Adam mentioned, Chris, you installed those halos or whatever they're called and their UVC lights, but I thought California banned ozone. So doesn't the UVC, whatever you want to call it, light bulb, create a little bit of ozone to begin with?
Not all of them. You get two types of UVC lamp. You get the one that just produces the germicidal wavelength, but you also get the one that produces the 184 nanometer wavelength, which produces the ozone. So you get filters in the glass itself that will cut that wavelength out. So for just purely sanitizing purposes without ozone, they will only emit the light, the UVC light.
So I want to ask some questions about the UV lights, but let's go ahead and cover the next thing we have on our list real quick is the media air filters.
Well, we could start UV. We're jumping around like a freaking bucky bronco over here.
Don't worry about Adam's list.
Okay. All right. Well, then the UV. Okay. So the UV lights here, and I want to state mine, and I'll let you guys talk about it too. When my customer came to me with the restaurants and said, I want UV lights in my restaurant. Again, I'm going to state my ignorance because I could be completely ignorant in this. The first thing I said is you're never going to find enough UV lights. The bank would have to be so big to be able to sanitize the air, because we're talking, if I have a building, one of my restaurants has altogether probably 50 tons of cooling on it. Okay. So with all the units, and to be able to have enough UV lights to sanitize the air just seemed crazy to me. Like a single UV light installed in the package unit just didn't seem like it was going to really do anything. Would you guys have anything to say about that?
The air is going round and round continuously, isn't it?
Yes, and it's mixing with the outside air too. We're bringing outside air in and then recirculating.
And keep in mind, it's similar to the swimming pools. The swimming pools that use the ultraviolet sanitization of the water, they actually pass the water over a quartz sleeve with an ultraviolet tube in the middle, and it relies on the fact that it is passing over it repeatedly, that it's getting exposed a little bit each time. But I'm not really sure what sort of level would be required. There is a new ultraviolet technology coming out though called excimer lamps that emit a wavelength of 222 nanometers, And they won't actually be in ducts or anything like that. They'll actually be in the ceiling, illuminating the whole area, because the wavelength is still long enough to damage still short enough to damage the bacteria, but it's not enough to actually get through the outer layer of dead skin cells in humans. It sounds so creepy when you describe it like this, or the tear layer on the eyes. So it's deemed a safe exact wavelength that is human safe, but not safe to bacteria. That's something that's come out though.
I think John's going to want to get on this, but
Yeah.
I feel like, let me just say one thing, John, sorry. I feel like that air passing through the element, though, of the bulb is not there long enough for it to sanitize. Now, what Clive just mentioned, you have seen those in places like hospitals, I believe, that they're stagnant UVC light bulbs shining down. But I don't know, I could be wrong. I just thought the air wouldn't be there at the bulb long enough to do anything. Like it's just passing too quick. That's my thought.
Yeah, so let's clear a couple things. So I have seen in a couple different places the UV lights in a room. They usually have a sconce, so there's the wave isn't shining on anybody directly. But let's talk about the technology. So UV technology is pretty simple. The intensity of the UV spectrum, the distance from the surface that's being treated, and the time that it's being exposed. So those are the three basic principles. Now, we've made great strides in UVC technology and a couple different things. So I'm here to say a couple things, and there's some controversy here. One, they don't work in an airstream. Okay, there are some companies making claims that their bulbs are intense enough to work in an airstream. But I'm here to tell you that if you have a microbial bacteria virus skipping by a UV light at 492 feet per minute, like that, it's not going to do anything. That be based on the technology, the science behind it, of intensity of the spectrum, the distance of the surface being treated, and the time of exposure. So I'm okay with UV technology, but it's got to be installed in the right place. Because I go all over the country and I'm in the field with technicians all the time, I see UV lights installed in the darndest places. Just weird. And so one story comes to mind when I was in California. So I had a client, he called me, had a big problem. It was in the Hollywood Hills. There was a big landslide. The earth moved, blocked the road. Microbial growth was coming into his unit through an outside air intake because somebody thought it would be a good idea just to run an 8-inch duct out with no filtration. So I get to the job. He shows up in a full canister respirator. He's like, John, I can't be in my house. I was like, I just have your way with it. Let me know. So I get to this package unit, and I see the panel, and there's a UV bulb there. I'm like, oh, this ought to be great. I pull it out, and on the bottom of that package unit was a little green spotch. It was acting as a grow light because all those principles of intensity, distance, and duration were out the window because it was about 3 feet away from the bottom of the thing. It was a little green patch of whatever growing there. So if we take an evaporative coil, an A coil, right? So we want to treat that A coil. And most manufacturers will tell you 12 inches distance is your maximum, 6 is your optimum. So 6 inches from that surface. So if you have an A coil, and I see people stick them like up on top, and you got that metal plate across the top, it's like, what's that going to do?
Doing
so
nothing.
let's look based on what we manufacture coil. You'd have to put a 1, 2, 3 UV lights. Now keep in mind, the light spectrum, if you look at like a laser pointer, unless you're in the matrix, you're not going to bend that light. It's linear, right? UV spectrum is the same. The light is linear. So if you have an evap coil and your light is linear, it's going to penetrate those fins to a point, but not all the way through. So to fully treat an evap coil, an A coil, you'd need 1, 2, 3. But what about the other side? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bulbs to fully treat all the surfaces of that. Now I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
So I'm totally okay if you were to do a triple safe UV sanitation system on an evap coil with 3 UV lights. I'm okay with that. You're going to get a lot of disinfecting going on. You're going to allow that UV technology based on what we know, distance, time, and the intensity of the spectrum to do its job. And that's the long and short of it.
But that's just, am I wrong in saying that's only sanitizing the evaporator? So that's going to stop bacterial growth on the A coil, but the air's not sticking around long enough to be completely sanitized, is it?
UV technology, as we know it for a residential application, will not sanitize the air. Now, I went to an AHR expo. I don't know if you guys ever been to one. They're fantastic because they're international. And I went. It was a few years ago. It was in Vegas, and I went to this company, and they weren't from the United States, and it was a UV company, and these guys had it all. They were like bazookas and lightsabers. I mean, these things were. It's like, oh, Tim the Taylor Toolman would have been just in heaven because it's just like big old bazooka UV. Now, if you were to grid a duct system with that, but still at 492 feet per minute, a bacteria or a germ or whatever zipping by there, man, that's got to be pretty darn intense. Now, if you're gonna grid a duct system, right, with UV technology, what's that doing to your static pressure? You figure each bulb is an inch.
That's a whole nother thing. Yeah.
And but that's our business. We're in that
so
business.
We're going to put indoor air quality products to mess with our air and slow it down and create other problems, like that.
To what end? Yeah. And so there's always all this stuff. There's efficacy questions. Am I getting the desired result? So again, out of all these technologies, I'm okay with UV technology, but it's got to be installed properly. And it's got to do the job it was meant to do, and that's sanitize a surface. Even surgeons, when they're getting ready for surgery, their tools come out of a sterile package and get laid down, and then there's a UV lamp right over them with their little cloth over it, and it's 3 or 4 inches away to make sure that is absolutely sterile to the time that surgeon picks it up and goes to use it. So the technology's been around, and that's my take on it. What do you think, Clive?
Yeah. Do you think that we can actually sanitize the air with UV lights, Clive, or just surfaces?
They seem to best optimized for surfaces, I'd say. I think at this point it's worth mentioning that if MD ever opens up a piece of equipment like that and they see a fluorescent tube that has clear glass with a ghostly blue glow in it, like basically imagine a fluorescent tube without phosphors and you can see that sort of dull blue glow in it. Be very careful, because don't look at the lamp for any prolonged period of time, and don't expose your skin to it, because it will cause, particularly the eyes, it will give you basically arc flash in your eyes. It's worth mentioning this because some people don't realize what these are when they open the cabinets and find these.
That makes sense.
But for me, ultraviolet, it's used in bakery equipment where it goes through a sanitizing cycle, but it is mainly used for cleaning surfaces. I think that's going to change, though, with these new lamps, the 222 nanometer ones.
Okay.
But generally, surfaces do need exposed to it. That is the main advantage when with the UVC.
So I would say that the problem is there's a lot of contractors and companies out there selling UV lights as a one-stop solution. And I'm not saying this, but I'm going to say what other people are saying to stop COVID.
Yeah.
Okay. And I had such a hard time in the beginning, and I just had such a hard time with everybody saying, first off, there was no research at the time saying that any of that did it, but
there still isn't.
No, there still isn't, but it just didn't make sense to me. Now, I'm not saying that UV lights don't do what they're claim to do, kill bacteria on surfaces. I get that, but on the flip side,
let's stop there. 1 second.
Okay, go ahead.
Before you go any further, we need to clarify your statement, because this is the one thing that contractors miss totally, and it's not your fault.
No,
but you just made a statement saying that UV light is going to kill First of all, it doesn't kill anything. It renders it unable to reproduce and multiply.
Okay.
So it doesn't kill. Now,
fair point.
And that's the technology. Now, as Clive said, with some of the newer technologies and the more intense bulbs, we may get a kill. But right now, the technology as we know it, at a molecular level, renders that microbial unable to reproduce, and by de facto, it dies off. And so, because a lot of times the problem is colonization. So if we can get it to not be able to reproduce, so that's one of the biggest misconceptions of UV technology. Oh, it kills, but it does not. Does that make sense? Is that how you understand it, Clive?
There is I want to mention another UVC technology that we're finding over here. In food spaces, they're putting small air handler units that do have a UVC tube that produces the ozone wavelength as well. And they're using that to put a very controlled amount of ozone into the air. And you measure the unit, it goes by the wattage of the lamp, they're all color coded, and then it goes by the actual volume of the space in the room. And they also have an interesting thing. They got a battery that it comes as a little battery. The battery is purely there as a life indicator for the lamp. Whenever the lamp's lit, the battery is being discharged so that they change it at a specific time. But in that instance, it's the ozone that's doing the work. The ozone is active in deactivating viruses and things like that, and bacteria, by modifying them when it oxidizes their surface.
And that makes sense, because that is I want to point out that is a designed product for a certain process. And I will say that, we use UVC lights in ice machines. Okay. There's a manufacturer, Manitowoc Ice Machines. They have a UV light that they have, and it has a pump on it, and it pushes the air through, and it actually keeps the ice machines cleaner. It reduces the amount of cleaning that I have to do on it. But it is engineered and designed for that particular ice machine. It has the proper pump on it that moves the air across it, and it's set up right. It's not a field technician going in and buying insert brand name of whatever UV light and throwing it in the unit and saying this solves your problems. It's actually engineered. So I think those are great when they're used for a certain purpose and they're designed for that purpose and they have the right amount of air moving across. I think that's cool.
Now we've been talking about UV lights. What about like the air scrubber products where they use a small UV light and it reacts with, what is it? What's the metal called?
Titanium dioxide.
Titanium dioxide.
There you go.
Explain those to me, because I don't even understand how those work.
There are
I can speak into that.
All right.
Okay, so you have a titanium dioxide plate or some kind of substrate. It's titanium dioxide. You have UV light. It interacts with the titanium dioxide and creates hydroxyl radicals. Okay, the hydroxyl radicals then will attack microbial, and then it creates a water vapor. And so that's the process. And so when you have these air scrubbers, and there's several others, and we don't need to go into the names, but
no.
And some of them are using both technologies of the photocatalytic oxidation and ionization together. But so then the PCO, photocatalytic oxidation, UV, and titanium dioxide, there's a reaction that creates hydroxyl radicals. The hydroxyl radicals is what's supposed to do the work of oxidizing microbials. Now, that reaction happens fast, really fast, and it's unstable. I've read a few articles that it could last just up to 5-10 seconds, up to maybe 30 seconds to 60 seconds, and then it breaks down and it's supposed to be neutral. But that is up for suggestion. So I want to read something to you, and this came out of a science magazine. I'm sorry I can't quote the magazine. I did a screenshot. But it said, in regards to PCOs, findings force us to change our mind and how we in our understanding of indoor air quality, because the reactivity linked to hydroxyl radicals would involve the formation of secondary species. So through the chemical reactions that are potentially more hazardous than the primary pollutants we're trying to mitigate. So it creates carbon dioxide for one. And if you're in an environment that you've got high carbon dioxide levels already, probably don't want to produce any more carbon dioxide. What levels? Depends. I mean, so this is all subjective because in a controlled environment like Clive's little box, I mean, we can pretty much understand what's going to happen in there. But when we get into real world applications in people's homes, different skill set levels of technicians installing these things, it changes. So we've got the production of carbon dioxide. We also have the production of formaldehyde, which is a known VOC, which is very hard to treat in and of itself. And a third one that they just found out, it does create trace amounts of nitrous acid. So here's how the hydroxyl radical may kill some airborne spores and may treat some odors, but the limited effect on surface mold, because some of these companies are claiming that they treat the surface too, is really just, there's not enough measurable evidence to do that. And they don't take care of colonization or established mold spores on surfaces. So here's how it works in a very controlled environment. And this is right, this is verbatim. They're exposing these viruses, bacteria, mold spores, and different things to massive quantities of hydroxyl radicals, a lot more than these devices can produce in the field, in an engineering laboratory for 2 hours in a petri dish. And they're achieving a 99.9 kill ratio against MS2 and some of the other viruses.
Okay.
Now,
MS-13.
Marketing is a tricky beast.
Yeah.
So, are they exaggerating? Well, no, they went to an independent laboratory who did this test, and they got a 99% kill ratio. But what they're leaving out is it was massive amounts of hydroxyl radicals, and it was for a 2-hour time. So you read the pretty blocks in the marketing, and it says, hey, 99% kill ratio. So we have to be careful.
Now, the
Yes,
titanium dioxide hydroxyl radicals, there's a bit of controversy over people implying that it will actually liberate hydroxyl radicals, which are an atom of oxygen, atom of hydrogen, actually being blown out into a room. There is controversy over whether it actually puts any out or all the reaction happens purely on the plate with things making contact on the plate itself. Some of the literature implies that it is actually putting out active hydroxyl radicals into the room. And it seems like hydroxyl radicals are being kind of, the little experiment I did with that box there, Sharp's advertising shows exactly what you described. It shows we put one of the units in a Tupperware box with bread, and it shows that the mold didn't grow in the bread, but only because, basically speaking, the box was full of ozone. That is fundamentally why that mold didn't grow. The hydroxyl radicals are a very small aspect. I can't help feeling that a lot of it is just marketing hype.
Yeah.
And I'm
going to agree with you.
Yeah, and I would say that one of my biggest problems, again, not completely understanding everything, is who wrote the marketing material and who wrote the documents that say it proves that it kills this or it kills that. Is it a third party? Is it a true independent third party? Or is it someone that the company paid to write that article?
The people who wrote the marketing were the marketing department, so their whole incentive is cash.
Yeah.
And the scientific research wasn't just some lab that decided to get involved and do a nice independent piece of research. They were paid to do that research. So there was a bias to provide the answer they wanted, fundamentally. And if they needed to trick it, then...
A lot of times, this manufacturer of insert name of device here pays a laboratory, and money talks to get the results to match the marketing material. And Clive,
who's to say they didn't pay multiple laboratories and chose the one that fit their?
Right.
Money does tricky things. Hey, Clive, to your point, I want to agree with you that the hydroxyl radical is probably not, I don't want to get hung up on that. That's just the process. It's the byproducts. So after that chemical reaction happens and it neutralizes fast, it's the byproducts that escape from there that are getting into the home that could be a problem. Not always. But if you've got somebody that's severely compromised and there's even a chance, and I want to make one more statement. I've called all these guys. You name it, I've called them. And I said, look, I'm just a tin knocker. I got a couple questions. Who can I talk to? And I'll go through my series of questions and there's like, oh, John, no one's ever asked that before. Those are great questions. And maybe I can get you over to this guy or that guy, or, oh, that's a great question for the inventor and this and that and the other thing. But the biggest question that can't be asked, and that's like, look, I'm kind of a numbers geek. I like to measure stuff. Can you tell me what testing methodology can I use in the field to qualify, quantify, and test your device to make sure it's doing what you say it can do every time? No. No, John, you would need millions of dollars worth of testing equipment.
It would. That's like, it would cost an absolute fortune to be able to say, for instance, if you challenged Sharp and said, does your unit produce hydroxyl radicals by the application of the positive field as well as the negative? How do you prove that? You can't prove it. You'd have to, it would cost an absolute fortune to get access to that level of equipment. It would be a fairly high profile lab and the costs associated would be astronomical. So
you think that's intentional?
You can't challenge them. It's not, well, it's just, it would cost a fortune to actually do it properly. So you just have to take their word for it and look at their pretty graphics of all the lovely molecules. Now, one of the things that I find quite disturbing is they claim it breaks water apart when it goes through the electrostatic field, and then it breaks it apart into the oxygen and hydrogen hydroxyl radical, but then it pulls another hydrogen atom out of the virus to deactivate it. And then they say, and that converts it back into water, and they go one step further and they say, and the water hydrates your skin. And it's like, oh, this is aimed at the vanity of women.
I mean, hey, I was sold on that as you were describing it, Clive. I'm like, damn, I'm gonna go get one tonight.
I got a problem, guys. All I have is water left. This is the problem. No, I'm just kidding. So I wanted to point something out real quick, and I want to move on to the outdoor air topic too. But my personal stance, I'm not attacking insert name of air cleaner, whatever here, whichever one. But unfortunately, I feel like too many service companies and or technicians are maybe improperly selling them in the way that they don't know what they might be promising incorrectly, maybe ignorance, maybe they're told to sell something. But I feel like there's a lot of people out there selling all these air quality products, because I know that the air quality products are huge right now. And I feel like maybe they're misinformed and or they're misinforming the customers on what they are going to do.
I've been asked I'm friends with a bunch of different heating and air companies around me, right? And everyone asked me, like, are you making a killing on like air cleaners and UV lights and all that? And I'm like, no. Why not? And I'm like, because I don't really know much about them, and I don't want to claim it's going to kill COVID, because I don't know the answer to that, and I don't want somebody to come back to me and be like, you installed this for $1,500 and I have COVID. You know what I mean? So I just didn't want anything. I didn't want to be the snake oil guy, because I just didn't know the answers to it, so I just never pushed it.
There'll be small print saying there, no guarantee that all instances of COVID will be defeated.
Yeah, fair enough.
I saw an advert. It was an Indian advert for the Sharp plasma cluster for your car. And they basically said in the advert, it will stop you getting COVID. And it was like, oh, that's brash. That is just maybe going a wee bit too far.
Yeah.
Here's the problem I have with those claims. First of all, who is going to give the SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19 virus to go test your stuff? I mean, who's going to...
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, here, go ahead and use my COVID and tell me how you do.
Yeah.
If it gets away, we're going to have another pandemic. I mean, that was the problem anyway. It got away. So first of all, I find it hard to believe that they're even given. Now, coronavirus has been around for a long, long time in different identities, if you will.
Yeah.
And so they might be able to get a hold of an older strain, or maybe, but that claim is just dangerous. It's giving people a false sense of security. And yes, they're making a killing on it because the markup is very attractive, and then the contractors, going down to the technician and for spiffs, and it's I'm making all these spiffs. Yeah, but what are you doing for your client? I don't care. I'm making this money, and because I go all over the United States and teach these classes, and there are certain contractors that just don't care because the money is so good. And then there's contractors who do care. And they're like, I'm seriously going to go take these out of homes based on the information that I've given them. And, hey, I really try to drive the bus right down the middle. I don't use brand names. I just talk about the technology.
We really enjoy alienating people and companies on this show. So feel free.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
Adam, you were saying what happens if someone gets COVID and you put that system in? Well, what's to say they got it when they were outside the house from somewhere else? And it wouldn't have happened in the house with that system. That's the sort of tactics they use.
Yeah,
it's all driven by commission. It's like these people are recommending these products and put them in for cash. That's their incentive.
And we live in such a litigious society where, basically the last person to touch it is the person responsible for it. So if, my contractor said that, this was going to guarantee that, it would kill said name of whatever virus. And now I got the virus. So, they're going to go after you.
There was one product that I did install during this whole thing, which it's a little bit pricey, compared to a UV light or whatever. And somebody mentioned it in the chat. What about a HEPA filter, which I've done quite a few bypass HEPA filters. I do like them. Although the one I've been installing, it does have a small little PCO filter in the bottom of it, which I know we already talked about that.
And
what's the smallest particle size that will filter out?
I should have the thing up. I brought it up. Why don't I have it on the screen? Go ahead.
While you're looking at that, go ahead, Clive. You talk.
No, I was just going to jokingly say because COVID's smaller than that. It's like, how do you actually know you're going to actually filter that out?
Yeah,
good point.
But I thought the way HEPA works is it somehow it's supposed to bond to other dust microns, whatever, and get bigger and then stop it that way. I thought that's how HEPA works.
Is like a super restrictive filter.
Hospitals use them.
Well, let's talk about that just for a minute. So there's some basic filtration principles: impingement, diffusion, electrostatic attraction, and oh my goodness, I'm gonna forget a couple of them. But those, so basically at a molecular level, and the way the fibers are, it creates turbulence. It creates an electrostatic attraction because they use a synthetic fiber. And if you're using microfiber technology, between all of those, the molecules start with, if they get within a half a molecule side, it'll cause them to veer off and then collide. And then the diffusion, as it goes through, the air becomes chaotic, which makes the particles bounce. And so usually when we talk about HEPA filtration, we're talking about getting into 0.3 microns, PM 2.5, in that realm of things. But really, that's just the beginning of if we talk about true HEPA. And then really, if we want to start getting into the PM 10 and the ultra fines, we got to start using a layered approach. And our residential equipment just can't handle that. No. Now, there are some manufacturers out there that make a great product that are in the MERV 16 HEPA realm that will help you address into the 2.5 PM 2.5 range of things with a very low static drop. And we're making great strides in that as well. A filter is meant to move a certain amount of air through a certain amount of space at a certain velocity at a certain static pressure drop. And then we in the HVAC community, when we're building our systems, it's like, hey, let's go shopping. Well, I got I got $5. That's 0.5 inches of static pressure. So let's go shopping. Well, I got a filter, 0.2, right? I got a coil at 2.2. So I just spent 4 of my $5.
Yeah.
So what's that dollar left?
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I like
System.
that's why I like the bypass HEPA. It draws the air in and spits it back out. There's no pressure drop, but you're not treating 100% of the air in the airstream. I just pulled up the one that I've been installing. It says 99.97% HEPA media filter helps remove airborne particles of 0.3 microns, otherwise known as 1/84,000th of an inch.
But that's only in the air that it bypasses.
Right.
That's not all the air. So
Correct.
it's only going to, so it's the sample rate of the air that it's essentially pulling out, right?
A percentage.
Yeah.
And so if we wanted to dip a little bit into the building science realm of things, if your filtration rate is here, your bypass filtration rate is here, and your infiltration rate is up here, who wins that battle?
Yeah. Infiltration.
Your infiltration.
So
it's relative.
yeah.
Clive, your thoughts on HEPA?
HEPA, I think the filter approach, as John mentioned earlier on, he was working a lot with people with existing health problems that you don't want to risk aggravating with like chemicals or ozone and stuff like that. I think that's the one place that good filtering is actually quite useful, just removing those particles from the air that could provoke those things. But I'm not an expert in filters. That's not my niche. My niche is ozone and ionization, I would say.
One thing I have to say about media air cleaners, like the Honeywell, what is it, F50 or F100?
150 or something.
One thing is if you actually look at the way they're supposed to be designed and the velocity they're supposed to flow through them, the majority of them installed on the side of a furnace on a return drop, the air is moving too fast past the filter to do the job it's supposed to do, and you're creating a bigger pressure drop.
Right.
You're doing more harm than good, I would say, in a lot of instances. Any thoughts on that, John?
Absolutely. It'd be better if you could stand off that furnace a little bit. But air is chaotic, first of all, and even to get air to straighten out. There's been some talk about linear flow. I doubt in any of our systems we'll ever reach linear flow. But if you take a duct width and length, it takes 10 widths for the air to even start to straighten out after turning. So there's a lot to that. So if you could stand off away from your furnace a little bit, you're going to be in better shape. If you're tapping into a side of the furnace without the blower motor is going to be different than the side with the blower motor, because now the motor is in the airflow stream versus the other side isn't. I don't know if you've ever looked at some differences. We get about a 10 or 15% reduction just by tapping in on the side with the blower motor, because it becomes in the airstream. And of course, ultimately, the way the cabinet's designed, pulling from the bottom would be our best result, or our best application. So there's a lot that goes into that, and measuring turbulence and everything. And so yes, if we could get that filter to stand off a little bit, it'd be great. But we don't always have the space.
So my thought, the next thing I want to kind of transition to is, again, because I don't understand majority of the air quality things, and it's really easy for me to understand outside air. Outside air has contaminants in it. I'm in Southern California. We have smog. We have all kinds of crap in the outside air. But and again, I may be ignorant in the matter, but I feel like if I bring in outside air, if I filter the air, I could put a HEPA filter on it. I don't care. We could filter the air coming into the house, into the building, and we do air exchanges on a regular. Is that not going to be a good thing? I mean, and just bring fresh air from outside in rather than treating it with UV lights and all these
fresh air. The fresh air is good because fresh air brought from outside has a natural level of active air components like ozone and the naturally occurring hydroxyl radicals that occur in nature. And the things that everybody says, oh no, ionizers produce nitric oxide and stuff like that, and that converts to acid in your lungs. Those are all also brought in from the air. The standard outside air is 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and 1% everything else. So you've got like neon, argon, krypton, xenon, you've got methane, you've got all these other gases. But one tiny fractional bit of that in nature is that typically, even if you were standing in the middle of a desert island in the middle of the sea, there would be 10 parts per billion ozone. And that doesn't sound much. But because of the number of air gas molecules in every lungful of air you breathe, you're actually breathing 100 trillion molecules of ozone with every single breath. If you're standing in nowhere near industry, if you're standing in the middle of a tropical rainforest in a beautiful scenic environment, so you're breathing quite a lot of ozone. That ozone, when it comes into your house, as long as you keep changing the air in the house, that's absolutely fine, because you're bringing fresh active components in, and like the ozone does its job, and it kills bacteria, it stops mold spores from proliferating. But when you close that airflow off, when it's winter outside and it's freezing cold and you don't want to bring in that air, that's when problems occur, because the active components will get neutralized. They'll do their job. They will either, the ozone has a very short half-life, it converts back into oxygen, it loses the spare oxygen atom onto other surfaces, and you end up with stale air. But the stale air is literally just that one tiny active component is missing. And that's why some of these products, like the iWave, that are actually, you guys could smell it, it's producing those trace quantities. That is basically putting the missing component back into the air on an ongoing basis. And that little tiny corona discharge, if you guys look at your iWaves, if you've got one out and you look at it in a very, very dark room, you see a tiny hint of the purple glow. If you look at it with, say for instance, hold on, I got a picture here.
Yeah, and I did that actually on the show where I turned the lights off and turned it on. You can see the little corona discharge. Yeah.
Can you see the little blue dots? Here, this is the sharp plasma cluster. It's those little hints of the violet that you see there that are actually doing it. They're producing the natural hydroxyl radicals. They're producing everything that nature does, but they're just doing it indoors. And I think that's actually quite good. It's just, but not too much. If you add too much, it starts causing health problems. If anything, I think an interesting approach would be looking to monitoring indoor air and measuring, say, the levels of ozone, and then adjusting the output of these units instead of just going for the we're just going to shove it out anyway approach.
That's a great point. What about you, John?
Well, I like what you're saying, Clive, but it's subjective because you say, oh, well, not too much. Well, what's too much? That's subjective. My client who just had a double lung transplant, who is in the healing process and trying not to reject that organ, 0 ozone would be probably the best bet for her.
Would 0 ozone be good? Because keep in mind that even if she opened a window or you had a filter in the window and brought that in, you'd be bringing in at the very least, that's saying that would be that 100 trillion molecules of ozone with every breath again. So that might kill bacteria that could actually defeat that healing process.
Yes. And so here's the thing about ozone, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here. So it reacts with organic compound and it oxidizes it in the air. But there's also, it can react with organic compound within the lungs too. And there are instances where you're exposed to too much, even low level, long term. Again, it's subjective. How much is needed for a given person, because it's certainly not cookie cutter. And I totally get it. It's natural and we need that. I get it. But when we're producing it and we have a home that's locked up and we get elevated, and I know the half-life and it breaks down, I get all that, but there's an opportunity for it to react with organic compound within. So when you get overexposure to ozone, you get like a sunburn on your lungs. And I remember when I was a kid growing up in Southern California, they had smog days, and then we go out and play, and pretty soon you take a deep breath and you're coughing because we're getting subjected to high levels of ozone and all the other crap that was in the air. But then you become sensitized, and once you become sensitized, you're sensitive to everything, and now you're chasing rabbits down every hole trying to figure out what's going on. So I like what you're saying, but that how much and we don't want to do too much is subjective. And then again, I like that you have that little ozone monitor, and that's a good start. But I would say not having a device that produces that would be a better direction to go. Chris, we were talking about outside air. Yes, I like that.
No, unfortunately, it's not a good start, because I've got 3 ozone monitors now, and I have to say they've been a disappointment. They are not accurate enough to actually measure the levels. It's really hard measuring the level of ozone in the air. So the way products like, say, for instance, the Sharp plasma cluster units tend to work, they tend to be sized to a building, and they do put out, because they're using ionization on sharp needle points, and they've got a fixed airflow and a fixed output, they seem to be using that to just say, what's the volume of the room? And we'll put out X amount, but it will play safe. It's never going to go above harmful levels. It's always going to be just basically, even if you had fresh air come in and it added to that, it's not going to push it into dangerous levels. But I will say that if you use one of these units, some people say, I'm going to get the biggest they've got, and they put it in their bedroom and they wake up in the morning with a hoarse throat, they are actually, suffering ozone damage or hydroxyl radical damage as a direct result of having too much of that air purification, or if it can be called purification, that air enhancement going on in their homes.
So
yes.
I want to say something real quick too. With the fresh air, I'm going to say that fresh air can be a good thing depending on if you're filtering it, I would imagine, right? I mean, bringing fresh air into the building.
Except in places, keep in mind, incidents happen, that bringing the fresh air in is not a good idea. Fukushima comes to mind, and when they have the fires, like you guys have been.
Yeah, we have fires down here in Southern California, and that's a time that you're not going to want to bring fresh air.
Yeah.
Or you're going to want to filter that air and catch the contaminants out of it, right?
Let's talk about bringing in fresh air and why we do it.
Okay.
So, one, we don't want stale air and we want it to mix. So that's one reason. In commercial applications, we have an economizer where we bring in fresh air for free cooling. When the enthalpy and the temperature is in the right spectrum, and we're calling for cooling, and we bring in fresh air. We bring in fresh air for dilution. In the indoor air quality, we want to dilute harmful elements that are in the house, whether they're coming from in the house or they come from outside, for dilution. And another big thing we do with outside air is building pressures. We bring a prescribed amount of outside air in to create a slight positive pressure in a home, and we've just cut down our infiltration rates. Now our filtration can do the job it really needs to do. So those are the primary reasons why we bring in fresh air. Now, the why never changes, just the how. So my business was in California. I used to do a constant duty, positive pressure fan in my clients' homes that I'm creating an environment for. I would run it through a HEPA filter and 5 pounds of true activated carbon pellets, 5 pounds. And then I would bring it into, and so there was a fan, and so it ran, so it was constant duty. It ran 24/7 for dilution, for positive pressure. I'm both filtering it and tempering it. Now, depending on where you are in Southern California, if there's an event, and one of my clients that I was doing a job for, their house got inundated from ash because of one of the fires. They know if we got a fire, they turn the outside air off. Mm-hmm. But so that's what we do. I would pre-mix the air and temper it. I could get away with that in California. Guess what? I can't do that in Georgia or Florida. Yeah. I can't. Now, the why is still there, just the how. So we have to be very careful on how we do things in certain areas of the country. And so then that's why we have ERVs and HRVs. Yeah. I've even in Houston, Texas, where it rains inside. If you don't have it just right, I would bring fresh air in through a dehumidifier and then bring that into my HVAC system. And I'll just wring that air out. And then, of course, having my sensible latent ratios set right by adjusting airflow on my HVAC equipment, having matched set equipment and being able to slow that air down a little bit and get my ratio right goes a long way into just like arbitrarily adding fresh air. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Would you guys say that would it be fair to say that if we could have a quality indoor air quality monitor monitoring the air, then we would know whether or not to treat the air with said devices, outside air, different things like that? Would that be a solution?
There is one. There's a new one that it's starting to catch a little bit of ground right now. I'm sure, John, you're familiar.
The Haven?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm working with them. So the Haven IAQ monitor, it measures a certain parameters. It's an induct type of monitor. So it measures pressure and particulates and TVOC, and it'll measure carbon monoxide, I think. And it's a great monitor. Now that same device was blue labeled for Daikin. It's in their air intelligence system, and it's with a communicating thermostat, and it's doing demand. So if it is measuring particulates are too high, it'll go ahead and kick that fan speed down and let the filtration work better. Or if it measures carbon dioxide. So if our carbon dioxide hits a threshold of, let's say, 600 ppm, which is kind of a standard, 1,000 depending on who you're asking for. But let's say we're at 600 ppm carbon dioxide within the home, it'll go ahead and kick on my outside air intake and run that for dilution. So it's a wonderful monitor conceptually. They're still working out some of the kinks. I personally think they should do their monitor with their own communicating thermostat that has the ability to bring on humidity's too high. Go ahead and kick on a dehumidifier, and stuff like that. So they're making good strides. It's a great company. I work with Ben over there, who is their tech guy, and so they're moving up, and it's a company to keep your eye on.
So let me ask you this real quick for both of you guys. So we have some people that have, they're healing from lung transplants. They have kidney disease. They have insert name of whatever, illness, right? And obviously they're hypersensitive to some of these devices. Then you have people that, as far as we know, are in normal, healthy conditions, whatever you define healthy as. So would it be fair to say that for the people with the strange health conditions that we need to adjust the indoor air accordingly to help those people? And then the people that don't have, outlying conditions or whatever, obviously adjust the air, bring in more ozone or whatever you want to do. I mean, would that be a fair thing to do, to adjust the air accordingly per situation?
Can I make it simple for you?
Sure. Go ahead, John.
Go ahead, Clive.
Okay.
No, let Clive go.
Okay.
I think if someone was in this sort of state of ill health and they needed that pure air, I think you'd add air, at the very least, air purification in that room specifically. One of the best ways to answer that is, what would it be like in the hospital? What would the hospital do? What would their air handling be like in the place that patient was recuperating initially before being returned home?
And it's going to change per patient, though, because if you have a patient that's hypersensitive, they're going to be in a negative pressure room or whatever. They're going to be in a certain room and they're isolated, right?
If they required that special treatment, I think, they wouldn't be out of hospital, would they? They would be staying in the hospital for that particular environment.
Fair enough. Okay. That's a good point. What were you going to say?
As a commissioning agent, I got to commission surgery centers, hospitals, clinics, and the likes. I go in, certain set of parameters, they got to be measured. Everything's got to be set. We're measuring humidity and air exchanges per hour. We're building pressures with relationships to, let's say, corridors, other rooms, colonoscopy rooms, infectious disease rooms are always negative pressure, conditioned air going in 100% to atmosphere. That's what we're doing, infectious disease. Massive air exchanges per hour, things that we're not able to accomplish in a residential application. Well, we could, at what price tag? So one of my clients, Helen, in the Los Angeles area, COPD, 50% lung capacity. There is no cure. And so my associate Gene is a respiratory pharmacist by trade, and he went out into the field and he does environmental audits, and that was part of my team. And so her doctor prescribed our services. Now that's a pretty solid word, prescribed, but he prescribed, and the HMO PPOs won't pay for that, but she was able to write it off as a tax deduction. So my big five were HVAC. Okay, so if we want to get a handle on just a solid IAQ approach, before we even do any devices or anything, my big five is thermal comfort. That's what we do. We're in the comfort business, right?
Right.
Control humidity. That's what we do. Filtration. That's what we do. Outside air, which is a combination of dilution and controlling building pressures, right? And then source control. Source control. Let's identify the source of the pollutants. Let's get a handle on them so our solution can do the job it's supposed to do. And if that included a air purification device, so be it. But if we can get a handle on those five right there, that's what we do as HVAC professionals in our everyday businesses. We're going a long way into creating a solution for our clients. And then there's other things, we look at. So when we got done with the job, lovely old lady, she's 76 years old, through diet and exercise, and we cleaned up her indoor environment. I put in hospital grade air filtration, outside air, positive pressure, new system. Climate was perfect, room to room, not more than a 2-degree difference anywhere you went. So with those things that we did, all the insulation came out, we air sealed, new insulation, she had blown in, we put in an EcoBat, all that stuff being said and done. Diet and exercise in a clean environment. She went back to her doctors for several follow-ups, and because my associate Gene is a respiratory pharmacist, PhD, they talk doctor talk, and the HEPA rules don't account. Her lung capacity increased to 65%. Her overall well-being and quality of life has gone up. She's going to have many more years of being able to be with her grandchildren, and the doctors were absolutely amazed on what happened by cleaning up her home environment. We spend 90-some-odd% of time at home, even more now with COVID, and then we spend even more of that time in our bedrooms. That should be our sanctuary.
Yeah.
And so as HVAC, we are in the best position. We're in the driver's seat on being able to genuinely help our clients by what we do in our everyday businesses.
Someone has just mentioned that if someone did have major lung problems at home, they'd probably be on an oxygen concentrator anyway. So there'd be all the filtration built into that through the molecular sieves in it, that it would actually be providing them a fairly clean stream of air, even in a fairly polluted room.
It's a fair point.
It is. And yes, I've had plenty of clients on oxygen, but we wanted it to be the best environment that they could possibly have. And yes, they were on oxygen, and but we did the job. When I have a client that comes to me with cystic fibrosis, it's a death sentence. Now they've gotten better, but we're talking about quality of life. And I had a client in Minnesota. This little girl was a bubble girl, allergic to the world around her. Chemical sensitivities, full-blown rashes, food allergies, deep, concerning asthma, going into asthmatic arrest. And so I'm not going to say, hey, you know what? I got this air scrubber or something. I said, no. We cleaned up our home environment using my big five to get to where we needed to be by controlling temperature, humidity, building pressures, filtration, getting a solid approach. And when I met her, she was 5 years old. I used her as part of my class. I got a picture. She's full on wires and everything, and she goes into barometric chamber, all this stuff. She's going into college now, and I went and visited her recently, and those stories are amazing. And I have tons of those stories. Genuine people and kids whose lives have been enhanced, and their quality of life, and parents, by using a basic approach, and not one of them got an air purification system. And that's just what I did. It's not to say that's just where I'm at.
Yeah.
And it still falls under the IAQ. Now, when you're saying about the humidity, now was she having too much humidity, which was causing mold? Like, what was going on there? Was it too dry that she was suffocating?
The girl in Minnesota, if you will, don't you know? Minnesota, don't you know? Yes, extreme temperature swings from summer to winter. The basement was inundated with mold, so we were able to get a remediation company in there. We were able to get humidity control under control.
Can I intervene? How did they get rid of the mold? How did they get rid of the mold? I want to hear this.
Okay, so there was a remediation company that came in.
Okay.
And they used a borate approach. Okay, that's my favorable approach. Okay. So they came in, they exposed the walls, and it's kind of like a sandblaster, but they use a borate, which is a salt. And they took the wood down. They took the wood down to raw wood using this borate, and they cleaned it up. And the borate dries out all those microbials and there's still trace amounts of the borate. It's salt in the wood, so it doesn't come back. And then we cleaned it up and then put it all back together, and re-drywalled and all that. That's my most favorite type of mold remediation. There are companies that use a polymer too, that's gaining in popularity. There's some companies. Ozone generation is good as long as nobody's there, but they just blast that. Yes, because it will blast it. Yes, but that will linger as long as you get it, aired out. And then there's another thing that's gaining popularity. It's called baking. And I don't know if you're familiar with that. You bring the temperature of the house up to 130 degrees for a certain amount of time. There's even, I read an article, they were doing that I can't remember, some police department or maybe it was EMTs, they were doing it in their cars, their emergency vehicles, and bringing it up to 130 degrees for an hour. And I was like, well, heck, man, and you can go out to Palmdale, California, or the Inland Empire, just roll up your windows in the summer and do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
but baking is gaining traction too, because it's kind of a natural approach.
Sure.
I have to say that I'm disappointed that you guys aren't screaming at each other.
Can we have like one quick argument before we end this?
But I mean, I think it's fair to say that both of you guys seem to think that the takeaway that I'm getting from this is that every situation is going to be different, and sometimes you may need certain things.
Sure.
And the takeaway that I have is some sort of indoor air quality monitor that accurately monitors the air is really going to help everybody. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yeah, and that's tough and expensive.
Yes,
there's
tough
some
and expensive.
wonderful,
fair enough.
Wonderful handheld devices. Lighthouse, Grey Wolf, PB Ray, to name a few, have some wonderful handheld devices that'll measure a wide spectrum of things. I'm working with a company right now called Air Answers, and it's a small, so there's Air Advice and Air Answers. They measure two different spectrum of things, but Air Answers, you run it, it's got a cartridge, it pulls samples, it will actually measure microbials and different things and speciate for you. You mail it in, it goes into a lab, they analyze it. For us as just novice, without calling a certified industrial hygienist in to do that, is a great. So if I see some elevated amounts of different microbials, if you will, I'd say, well, I probably need to do further testing. And same thing with Air Advice. It measures temperature, humidity, TVOC, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide. And it's a wonderful snapshot that allows me to take a look and say, well, we need to go a little deeper and see. And the same thing with radon. I don't know if we didn't talk about radon, but radon's kind of a big deal. Second largest leading cause of lung cancer. I ask people in my classes all the time, hey, you guys got radon in your area? Oh, no, we don't. Oh, yes, you do. It's everywhere. And even in California, there's a radon belt that'll run through. And so you can buy the little home kit, And if you're looking at 2 PCILs of radon, well, that tells you probably need to bring somebody in to do a more accurate test. So that's where we're at. I mean, testing. I'm a geek when it comes to that, but my wallet doesn't allow me to be as geeky as I'd like to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Clive, did you have something to say about the testing?
One of the problems with the testers is like to get a proper unit is really expensive.
Yeah.
And the sensors in them, it's not just a case of recalibrating. They have a fixed lifespan. And then you might as well throw the thing away because the sensors are so easy to contaminate, even by the things they're actually supposed to be detecting. The ozone sensors, for instance, even just not using it for a while, means you have to leave it running for like 2 days to actually condition the sensor again in some instances. It's really hard, really tricky. I was talking about this in the other podcast, and it was I was thinking, how on earth do you reliably test, say, for instance, the level of ozone in indoor air? And what came to mind was a good approach would be just to stop looking at it numerically and have a pump that brought a sample of air in from outside, see what it showed in an ozone sensor, and then match that in the inside so that the indoor levels match the outdoor levels just by alternately sampling with the same sensor from outside and from inside to compare the two of them.
What about just exchanging the air if you find that the outdoor levels are better?
Well, that too, but keep in mind you can't. Certainly over here, we spend a lot of time that it's so cold outside that even with heat exchangers, that it would cost a lot to just bring in too much cold air from outside.
That's a good point.
We don't live in nice parts of the world.
I did a pilot study. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we're talking about radon, we're talking about VOCs, and they're always happening. So I don't understand why in a place like America don't do like we did and make it mandatory to let's get some fresh air in all the time, like an HRV. It's mandatory.
Against our constitutional rights, Joe. Don't try to tell us things because we have constitutional rights and we're going to defend those to our death. But you're not going to force air quality measurement on me.
The new Title 24 codes for California, as of, I think, last year, says you will have a MERV 13 filter, minimum fan watt draw, refrigeration charge by a HERS rater, duct tightness, and a minimum fresh air. Those are all HERS standards.
And I agree with those. And yes, I'll go do tours through new houses, and the fresh air, the way that they meet their fresh air requirements makes me laugh because they have an outdoor air fan on a timer of which the homeowner is responsible to go and push that timer multiple times a day to bring in fresh air into that building.
That's dumb.
So the homeowner's never going to push the timer to bring the fresh air in.
Very dumb.
So, and every economizer that I've installed on a package unit that has failed to work within 2 to 3 years because the sensors fail or the actuators fail, the customer do not want to fix them. They just simply say, I don't want to pay for the economizer. So anybody that watches my videos, the comments are always crazy. Why is every economizer disconnected? Because the customer does not see the return on investment. So therefore they don't fix them. So every economizer is bypassed, either manually opened or shut. And then we have negative, positive issues and, all kinds of crap in the air. So 30%. I think it's great that we bring in fresh air and stuff. And, I don't know. It's
great.
It's good, but the customers aren't maintaining it.
Unless it's in a bad area.
Yeah, that is another issue, and that's fair enough to say. That is totally fair enough to say. So, if you're given the tools and you have, and your system is up to code and designed properly when it's installed, however you see to fit, to maintain it throughout that period after it's installed, then so be it. But yeah,
I'm pretty sure ASHRAE, I think changed in the last couple of years. Their air changes per whatever in the building code, not residential, but in the building code, just from all this shenanigans going on. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they upped it.
ASHRAE created a pandemic task force, and they revisited some of their outside air requirements. It's been, schools, 25 CFM per person, libraries, conference rooms, theaters, different things. It's all have different. So they revisited that, but the residential code has always been kind of the same. Actually, 62.2. We have the 2005 0.35 air exchanges or less. You shall introduce fresh air. Then they changed it, and it's like, oh well, we've got 3 bedrooms and 2 people and X amount of square feet, but they're kind of going back to it because it got a little convoluted. But if you're at or below 0.35 air exchanges natural per hour, you shall introduce fresh air. A lot of them are doing it too with the whisper quiet bathroom fan that runs on a little calculation. You can program that into some of your thermostats if you're bringing outside air based on cubic feet, and it'll run for X amount of minutes, every hour on the hour to meet that requirement. So there's several ways to do it. But again, maintaining it once that building's been commissioned as an economizer commissioning agent, my goodness, just like you said, or they'll plug them in and say, yeah, it's factory set. No, there is no factory set.
No,
There's a minimum requirement.
Yeah.
And then the old days, it used to be linkage where you loosen the nut and slide the rod and then measure it and say, darn, missed it, and do that about 50 times.
Yeah.
Then they started getting better controllers, the Belimo, the Jade. The Honeywell Jade is fantastic.
It's a
Works on
breeze.
millivolts.
Yeah,
You can dial that.
You don't even, honestly, let's just dumb it down. You don't need to understand the principles to operate a Honeywell Jade economizer. It's so simple. It's stupid. I mean, you just answer a few questions and it's done. What's the minimum outside air percentage? Done, so easy. So, it's interesting too on the new homes, again, with Title 24. For those that don't know, Title 24 in California is an energy code. California, we're very proactive when it comes to everything. So if we're doing it here, be ready. It's coming to you really soon. Okay. Because we start everything first here. But the energy code basically just, the purpose of it is to make sure that our systems are installed, commissioned, and operating properly from that point forward. People skate around some of that stuff. But it's
what the biggest problem with that is?
What's that?
So the biggest problem with that is it's a minimum code.
True.
So we're going to go right up to the line. It's a minimum code, but it's also prescriptive. A plus B plus C has to equal D. And you remember Energy Upgrade California and the thousands and thousands of dollars they spent? Prescriptive. Do this, that, and the other thing. The results are always going to be the same based on an algorithm that was unrealistic. And we went back later and started doing live measurements. Let's measure air exchanges per hour, actual delivered BTUs from our equipment. It's all about the BTUs. Let's just take some live measurements. Let's look at live savings. And they didn't save a plug nickel on all that money. And that's the problem with minimum codes. They're prescriptive algorithms.
So as we are coming,
but that's a conversation for another day.
That is a conversation for another day. So, we're going to wrap this up. We're getting towards the end here, and I want to give you guys both an opportunity. Yes. Obviously, Clive, let's go ahead and promote what you have going on. You just wrapped a podcast with Bill Spohn, right? The indoor air quality
Building HVAC Science
Building
podcast.
HVAC Science podcast. So I'm assuming that'll come out hopefully within the next few weeks. I'm sure Bill will get it edited down.
Yes, I'm not sure when that comes out.
Yeah, we'll reach out to Bill. We'll definitely promote it too. That'll be a cool one. Clive, you have a couple YouTube channels.
I do indeed.
Which ones are they?
There's bigclive.com and there's Big Clive Live. Big Clive Live is for the live streams, and I'll be doing a live stream tomorrow. Well, Saturday. It depends where you are in the world, what day it happens.
Saturday.
All right. And then your main channel is bigclive.com.
Bigclive.com, yes, for technical teardowns, including one of the most recent ones is building a. I'm trying to remember the name of the guy. Alexander Chizhevsky. It's a ionic chandelier, a little mini one.
Interesting. Wow. So it's a light that's going to clean the air.
No. It's he invented the ionizer.
Oh, I thought.
That's like
this goes way back. This is before I was even born. It's a Russian scientist invented the first ionizer, and his implementation was it looked like a big chandelier with lots of spikes on it. It didn't light up. All it did was have a high negative voltage and ionized the air in the room, giving the electrostatic cleaning and precipitation out to the walls, and also creating the ozone by the knock-on effect.
Speaking of which, we didn't talk about your necklace, Clive.
The necklace, I can show you a couple of things.
Yeah.
The first domestic ionizer, actually invented by, I've got the name here, Cecil Alfred Copy Laws in Britain. It's the Medion ionizer. It's quite odd. I'll be taking this apart in a video soon.
Cool.
But this other thing is the necklace, which it says, Mini Keeper, enjoy fresh air, and then for no reason at all it says PM 2.5 as it filters out particles. It doesn't. It's a little pendant which it offers. It says you can enjoy double mood while it's on. And when you click it on, yeah, the little S lights up in it. And then it's got 2 tufts of carbon fiber bristles, and I've tested, and one of them is positive and one of them is negative. And you do a faint whiff of ozone. So it's a portable ozone generator that you can recharge from USB power supply, and it hangs around your neck and generates huge high voltages and corona discharges in your vicinity. I'm not sure this is a good thing.
I was just thinking, like, there's certain
That's the double mood, isn't it? It's the enthusiasm and then the subsequent sadness.
There's certain customers I have that I go into their house that it's a little bit disarray, that I would imagine that would be maybe a good thing to keep around my neck to be breathing fresh air,
All right, John, and what do you have going on right now? So you already promoted the you already talked about where you're from. And what you do. Do you have anything to promote that you have coming up that you want people to know about?
Not really. I don't have a channel or anything. Again, I'm teaching indoor air quality for Dyke and Amanda Goodman. It's a 16-hour class. It's a foundational class. It's basically building science, building forensics, and indoor air quality from a mechanical point of view. I tailor-made this workshop for the contractor. When Dyke and Amanda Goodman approached me, said, "Hey, John, we really want to teach an indoor air quality workshop." I said, "I will not stand in front of a classroom and sell products." And they said, "No, we want the real nuts and bolts and the science behind indoor air quality." And I said, "Fantastic." They gave me free reign. So I didn't invent the science. I just gathered it all and made it make sense for the HVAC contractor. And then again, with the new flat rate,
rocket scientists to come. We can come like normal layman's HVAC tech can come, and they're going to understand the basics of building science.
Building science and indoor air quality and mechanical. It's what we do. And it's got 16 NATE credits. It's a fantastic class. I've been getting rave reviews for. I've taught this class all over the United States and Canada, and people are really enjoying it. Says that's a nice stroke on my ego, because if they're not enjoying it, why am I doing it? And then again, the new flat rate, we're going into ride-along season, so I actually go out and get in the trucks with technicians for plumbing, electricians, and HVAC guys, and go right along and do service calls all day. And that's what I'm going to be doing in Indiana and Louisiana and Chicago, Illinois for the next 3 weeks. And that in and of itself is wonderful, because I love just being out with the guys. So that's what I got. And again, we're launching our IAQ module, which is just a game changer. So anybody out there wants any information, you can reach out to me, and
I was just going to ask
it a little further.
Where can they reach you out? Yeah.
Do you have an email address you want them to email you at, or is there a website, or?
Yes. So it's Dynamic Air Consulting at AOL.com. Old school.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And so I don't know if there's a way you guys can push that out to everybody, but
we'll get with you after the show, and then we'll push it out through our social media platforms. That way we can get everything right. So
hey, sure. Clive, it was a pleasure hanging out with you and getting to know you.
Yep. Good to meet you as well.
maybe we could do this again. We get a little deeper. We didn't even talk about bipolar ionization.
Yeah.
Wow,
That'd
we
be
missed
awesome.
that.
Yeah.
Isn't that one of the? I think that's one of the. I don't know. I
Well,
think it's crazy.
technically we did. My necklace does bipolar
Yeah.
ionization.
Yeah.
Can you guys at least just like tell each other you hate each other or something?
Or just
before
tell
we
each other
leave?
fuck off.
God.
Yell at each other or something.
Yeah.
Grr.
No,
I'm
it's
trying to think of
been-
something derogatory to say.
No.
Yeah.
I do have a handy tip about these sensors.
Okay.
The volatile organic compound. See if you fart directly into the meter, because I did this last week. If you fart directly into it, the volatile organic compounds goes off the scale.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess that would be in the methane realm of things,
Yeah.
right?
It would indeed.
Right.
I felt the need to test it. It was very impressive.
That's perfect.
I just
Did
wanted
you actually push the right button, Adam? Because Clive set you up for the perfect end the show
Well,
moment.
I wanted to
Right.
press that button because
Right.
I was like planning on like
He's never on time.
I was
So
gonna-
you failed us all.
I was gonna
Yeah,
cut
you
people
did.
off left and right during the show, but I never pressed it, so I wanted to.
Yeah, so you ruined the
button.
perfect moment to end the show when Clive dropped the thing about
I was-
farting into the freaking sensor.
I was
That would've been
just
perfect.
I was kind of just waiting for you to stop talking.
No.